Hello, everyone. This is Kent from 214 Alpha. We've had a number of videos we've released talking about different communities which might benefit from the 214 Alpha solution, and today I want to talk a little bit about real estate. And it's not just limited to real estate. There's a whole ecosystem to it. My mom was involved in escrow. She was an escrow agent for escrow officer for a lot of years, decades actually. And I remember visiting her at work, so I would, walk into the office. I had this beautiful long hair because it's the 70s, right? But I hadn't grown yet, so I looked like a girl, which, don't tell 13-year-old me that because I was a little bit sensitive about it. But anyway, I come visit my mom, and it's full of people working, and they had their typewriters, and they're typing away, and of course they're smoking because it's the 70s. And I would sit there and just watch her work and talk to her, and she was one of those people that could type on something unrelated while having a conversation. And I remember asking her, do you like this work? And she says, yeah, actually, it's pretty interesting. And I said, why? And she said, well, even though people have been buying and selling property for a million years, every transaction has its nuances. Everything's different, right? So, and that's true. I bought and sold 2 homes in my life, and doesn't matter if it's residential or if it's commercial, there's going to be some nuances to it. It's going to be a little bit weird. And although technically people could buy and sell their own property, typically they will defer to the wisdom of an agent, which can represent their needs. And there's a lot of benefits of doing so. One of them is that the agent's pretty good in putting you in touch with a seller if you're a buyer. And if you're a seller, they put you in touch with a buyer, right? So it's sort of, there's a benefit there. And it's not just that. Between the real estate agent and the escrow and all the other that are involved, there's an entire ecosystem of those that are participating with this. So let's say that I have a piece of property and I'd like to sell it. The agent would work with me to try to find a buyer, and of course there's all that stuff associated with them coming to choosing the right pricing, the right valuation through a competitive analysis to try to orchestrate people that look at the home. Finally, there's an offer. Let me assure you, if you've ever watched House Hunters on HGTV, it's nothing like that. It's like way more complicated, right? It's like that you find someone, they like the house, it's a good fit, you accept the offer, then somebody has to come and inspect it. There's also got to be an assessment of its value. And there might be some repairs that need to be done and some final negotiation. But if everything works out right, all the terms and conditions are satisfied, money is transferred from the buyer to the seller, which is more accurately to the bank that holds the title, because there's usually a mortgage that needs to be paid anyway. And then, ownership is transferred and off you go, right? So what I just described is a process, right? And that process is, I guess you could call a workflow. Let's just call that a workflow. And from that perspective, that workflow is fairly consistent. In fact, there's a lot of agents out there, but the agents that really distinguish themselves are those who have really invested in tools that help their customers understand, how to navigate these particular nuances. And I've seen some really great collateral created by agents that really show this workflow. This sort of like, there's let's say a 5-step process, and you begin in this phase, and you move to the next phase, you move to the next phase, and that really helps their clients understand where they are, because that can be really maddening when you're in the process of buying or selling property. You're like, where am I in the process, right? And so, so I've seen some really cool technology tools to help facilitate that. But let's look at it from the perspective of the real estate agent. The real estate agent is servicing the needs of buyers and sellers, right? And so, the thing is, they're constantly prospecting. They're constantly looking for more customers. They're looking for more clients, right? And the trick is, of course, is that your clients aren't buying and selling houses every 3 weeks, right? I mean, this could take years before they do. So, there's this maxim within the business world that says, typically your best customers are associated with your best customers, right? So if you're a real estate agent and you've got 10 or so clients that you really love, chances are you're going to get your next best clients from that pool. So what you got to do is you got to add value to that relationship. And I got to tell you about Heather Bremer. She's a real estate agent we've worked with. I did IT stuff for a company called Keller Williams years ago, and I was fascinated because Heather is one of those people. She doesn't spend a lot of money on things that don't have a lot of value. So for her, she sits in the shared office space and she just works and works and works and works and works and works. And I think she's under her own agency now. But I was really impressed by her. I mean, she's a worker bee. So I asked her to represent us. She helped us buy our house, and then since then, she's helped us sell our home. But she's also did this thing for my mom's condo, and other family members. She's become the family real estate agent. That's how that works, right? So from Heather's perspective, she provides excellent customer service, and she provides constant value through those years between each transaction. She gives us a little bit of insights about our community, people that have been added, stuff like that. Now, The thing is that typically that's done via email or other social forms, and so let's say, for instance, that someone like Heather would like to create a platform that would be exclusive to her customers. So it would be something that would be made up of people, like my wife and myself, and of course, what she's hoping is that I would have incentive to invite my friends to this thing, right? Because what she's trying to do is create a rich pool of prospects, and she's got to do that. She's got to provide value, and one of the first things that she can do is to, if our introduction to this exclusive closed platform, this would be like a private platform, something like a Facebook for Heather Bremer and her agency, and so our first introduction to this thing would be in the context of buying or selling a home, at least for us, right? And so I would assume that it would have an interface that would show where you are in the sales process, but it would also facilitate updates from the various participants in the process of buying or selling a home, right? So, the inspector might want to chime in and say, oh, this is where I am with the process. I thought I would get it done Thursday, but it's going to be Monday. Just a heads up, right? So there would be some ability to communicate. And so, you could look at your mobile app and you could say, okay, cool. Well, I thought the inspector was going to be here Thursday. It's going to be Monday, but at least I know where I am. I'm on phase 2 of 5, and I know where the blockage is, right? And so, but after the house is done, it's all done, then that app might actually serve as a basis for just sort of letting me know what's going on in my community. And so in that regard, if you listen, the real estate agents really know what's going on. Those who really invest in the community really know, the latest coffee shop or the newest antique store or whatever. And so, they could invest in providing updates into that, the world from the perspective of Heather, because she really knows Northeast Portland, right? That's why we chose her. We just moved from Portland, but she's a Northeast Portland local, and she really knew the things. So she would give us updates, and of course we get them in email. But in this app, it would be within the app, right? So, so I would actually have incentive. My mom bought a condo. She actually bought a few houses in the Portland area, but she hadn't lived there for years. So I would have incentive to invite her. Say, Mom, you should get this app. It gives you some updates. It's sort of like a next door for us, but it's from the perspective of Heather. And an additional benefit that might be is that Heather could say, you know what, if you like the services that are provided by the others that are within here, you could actually engage and trade with them. You could do some, let's say, one of the people within her value chain knows how to fix gutters, because that's what they do when a house is for sale. So, so she could say, Kent, I know you need gutters done. You just contact Joe, and he can take care of that for you. And her private platform, her private social platform, her private little next door, right, would be able to facilitate trade. And so you can see where I'm going with this. There would be incentive for someone like me to remain within this sort of private platform to facilitate trade among those who are part of Heather's network. And in this regards, people are leveraging off her earned reputation and building in the aggregate the reputation of that entire community, which might actually be just a subset of a city. The benefits for, well, actually, let me pause for a second and go back. So what I'm describing is our platform. Our platform has 7 pre-integrated functions that enable lots of different communities to become self-sustaining. And so, I've just described, 3 perspectives, actually. My perspective as the consumer, I might have benefits to use it, which I'll talk about in a moment. There's the perspective of vendors. They might actually enjoy this as well because it puts them in contact with consumers. And the person who's actually facilitating the platform, which would be Heather. So there's 3 different things. So first off, there's digital identity. We have 7 functions. The first one is digital identity, and they have to be verified. You have to know who these people are. As I've shared in other videos, I have a substantial background in information security. My specific area of expertise is the identification of fake profiles. And so what we do is we build a lot of that into the platform from the ground up. You got to verify who you are, and it's not as enough to just show your driver's license. You got to show who you are. And so, Nextdoor does that in some respects in that it ties you to a home, but we could do a little bit better with that. But once you're on there, you know that this person is who they claim to be. And, it's from that basis you build a reputation. So that's digital identity. Second thing is communication. So it's somewhere a mix between, like a mobile brace, because it's all mobile. The whole application is mobile. So it's a mobile-based sort of, I wouldn't say browser, but it's how you interact with things on a mobile device in a way that sort of is like a browser thing. But it's also chat, secure communications between 2 or more people that facilitates transactions, which actually gets to the third function. The third function would be commerce, and commerce enables you to buy, sell, trade. You could auction, you could barter, you could loan. It actually facilitates payment plans and subscription, and so within just those three, we actually have a really powerful basis from the perspective of all the people that I talked about: the consumer, the service provider, and our exquisite real estate agent. So, what we've got is, from my perspective as a consumer, now I know that the people I'm dealing with aren't fake. It's sort of like a next door I can actually do something with, right? The second level is from the perspective of the service provider. They can actually do buying and selling on the platform itself, and the platform is built utilizing it's a private blockchain. It's not on the public blockchain. It's private and it's exclusive to Heather's community. And the reason we use that technology is that it facilitates high trust between strangers, and it's built from the ground up to resist fraud. So, and it can accept a lot of really interesting payment options, which gets us into the fourth function, banking. Banking enables you to use electronic currency to pay for goods and services. And built into the platform is the ability to do some really, really interesting things. You could do crowdsource funding. You could do microcredit loans. You could actually, a feature that we released last week is the ability to use, you could put a deed or a title in the wallet and leverage it as collateral. Within the context of this closed community, and we leverage common law precedent to do that. So, so that's digital identity, communication, commerce, and banking. The fifth one is reputation, because there's a reputation model to this, and this is not like the Yelp score where you just have a bunch of 5 stars and it means nothing. You can't. It's more like you can't actually rate someone's performance until you've actually completed a transaction. So you're not going to get a lot of fake accounts gaming the system, but it's also instrumented in such a way that you could evaluate the efficacy of the different participants. So, from the perspective of the real estate agent, she could say, well, I have 5 different people working with me on gutters, but 2 of them don't respond to calls, and I'm going to move them off the platform because the platform is a representation of my brand, right? So, so anyway, that's reputation. The sixth one is arbitration. That's conflict resolution. It's built into the platform proper. We use a private administrative process leveraging notary, which is, again, based in common law, so it's applicable in every jurisdiction, but you don't have to use the courts, so it's low cost and effective. And the final one is governance, and in the context of our platform, governance is roles and responsibilities, policies and procedures, access and permissions. A lot of it's invisible. It's sort of more like corporate governance than sort of like trying to build a version of the European Union on a software platform. Which somebody might need someday, but probably not right now. But it does have some accountability in there. So let's say, for instance, that Heather wants to bring somebody on to manage her social platform, because that's what it would be, her social platform. And she would use it to do prospecting. And she'd do that by providing values to the people that are within there. And the platform quality itself would elevate the brand of Heather Bremer, the real estate agent. And those that are on that platform would come to appreciate it, because it would be a reflection of how much she knows Northeast Portland, because she really, really knows it. I mean, just inside and out. So let's say that she hires someone to do their job, and their job is to, let's make sure that we're choosing only the best vendors that are satisfying our customers. Let's make sure that we've got the best customers relative to what our needs are. And if that person doesn't satisfy those goals relative to the reputation engine, then they can be cycled out. They can be put on a remediation plan, and if they don't remediate, then they can be cycled out. By the way, that's how I manage my teams. We have regular releases every 2 weeks. If you don't deliver as you said you would, then you're put on a remediation plan, and if you don't, then we cycle you out, have someone else in. And there's always an opportunity for redemption, which is a really important part of reputation. The really great thing about providing coaching that's like this, and sometimes consequences, is that it creates an opportunity for people to reflect upon what happened and maybe improve their performance. And in fact, some of the people that we've got within our community are those who have had to cycle through that, and that's okay, man. Sometimes being fired is the best thing you've ever had happen. So all that stuff is built into the platform, and the reason that we integrate all that stuff into a single platform is so people like Heather doesn't have to deal with it, man. She already has too many different systems, all the different real estate databases and the whole deal. She just wants this to be simple. So, she's not going to hire an IT staff to do all that stuff, because that's annoying. So, so the additional benefit she gets, however, is that the platform itself actually facilitates an ability for her to diversify her revenue actually in a really interesting way. You know, real estate agents can be real feast or famine, particularly if you're starting out, right? You know, you get a few houses and that's fantastic, but if you get a few months of dry periods, especially where, you know, it transitions from, you know, a buyer's market to a seller's market to a buyer's market, that can be a little bit rough. So there's two things we do. One of them is that we actually provide an in-app loyalty buck, basically, and she could call them Brimmer bucks. Actually, that's funny, I just made that up. Brimmer bucks by Heather Brimmer. I love that. And high five, Kent. So Brimmer bucks would be, you know, it's sort of like Starbucks app. You know, let's say you go to Starbucks and you say, "Hi, I'd like to put $10 on my app," and the reason you do so at the point of sale is it gives you little points, gives you like stars or whatever, and you can use that for discounts. But let's say I buy a cup of coffee for $2.50. Now $7.50 of that is still sitting in the ecosystem for Starbucks, and it's non-redeemable. So now Starbucks gets to leverage that for their own capital improvements, which is a pretty smart idea. But here's the other thing: is that those loyalty bucks actually can be spent in a really interesting way. Think of this in the perspective of facilitating peer-to-peer trade. Let's say that you're Heather and you've had Kent and you sold him a house, and that's cool, but it's 2 years later and he needs to get his gutters replaced, right? So you refer Kent to somebody else to do the gutters. There's actually built-in incentive for Kent to use the Brimmer bucks to pay the gutter guy. And a lot of that actually is fantastic. Actually, because the platform facilitates trade, you don't need to use Visa to verify the transaction. In fact, you can't spend the money if you don't have it. That's another byproduct of the blockchain platform. So, you know, there's incentive for the consumer to use the Brimmer buck because it provides a discount, and that discount can be actually justified because you eliminate the need to do a Visa verification. The platform actually facilitates everything you need, so you don't need to use PayPal or whatever else to do it, all of which actually charge a transaction fee. And then of course the gutter guy wants to continue marketing to Kent and his friends, and if he can get a good valid, you know, connection into Kent, and he can market into his community, you know, say, hey, I'll give you a certain number of Brimmer bucks if you can hook me up with 2 other gutter opportunities like that, right? So there's a lot of really great synthesis in there. So that's another benefit that's to Heather. But here's the thing. The use of the platform necessitates transaction fees, and that's appropriate, right? That's just, you know, there's a lot of reasons for that. We still are cheaper than, in terms of transaction fees than other platforms, but that's not really the point. It's high value. There are transaction fees, but a lot of that transaction revenue goes back to Heather. And for her, that actually creates a profit center. It makes that her private social media platform a profit center, and she can leverage that profit center to grow other parts of her business, or she can use that to diversify her aggregate financial portfolio. So if the market goes through a transition, she's actually able to leverage a more diversified revenue stream. So anyways, just off the top, this is a good example of how this platform, which is created for, I guess you could say, intentional communities, could be easily adapted towards other, you know, market-facing communities, ecosystems between vendors. Well, they're diversified markets, actually, if you think about it. And the high level, no different than a farmer's market. It's a diversified market. It's got a lot of different. It's not diversified, aggregate. Oh man, I forgot the nomenclature. Anyway, it's like an aggregate marketplace, right? Where there's a variety of clients and vendors working through this thing with another number of clients and vendors, and it's a very interesting environment. And I would say that the existing solutions don't do a good job of facilitating that. They require people to put together a hodgepodge of different solutions to support this. In our case, we just put it all together. Of course, there's some customization on our part to make sure that it meets your needs, but it is a platform. So, you know, in terms of time to value, when we work with clients, it's only, you know, a few weeks or whatever before you can get your first version of this app. So when we talk to you, we say, look, we're going to take what we have, put your branding on it, then you can go out and you can say, look what we've done. Now, it's going to require customization, right? So the real estate agent is maybe want to put together a user interface that shows where you are on the 5-step process of buying or selling a home. That's cool. That's something we got to develop. That's going to require professional services up front. But in terms of time to value, you can get that app. So if you're that agent, you can say to your people, look, I put together this thing. I put together Rob Levy, he's another agent, is on the west side of Portland, actually a superstar agent. Let's say he wants to put together an app that says, look what I've done. I've got this platform, right? And the benefits that you get is you get to see all the different community connections that I have. So, oh, this is my twin coming in. Geez, they're really good at doing that. All right, I'm going to end this. Take care, y'all.